Welcome everybody to our session, Trust, Talent and Transformation. I'm really pleased to have two really global leaders here with me. First of all, Julie Leclerc. How shall I introduce you? We've been working together already for many years. You're in a role as Chief of Staff, lead the global finance transformation. So really pleased that Julie is with us to explain what is real in AI and how do we see businesses transform. Next is Sam Gloat. Maybe you saw her on stage yesterday, our global trusted AI leader. And we really want to explain, okay, how in a practical way are we helping our clients through the journey around transformation. And that's why the title of today is Trust, Talent, because without talent we can't do that. Always a human in the loop, and transformation. Yesterday we launched, we talked already, and in a couple of sessions here we talked about our trust research. KPMG, in collaboration with the University of Melbourne, we did a research, I think it's the biggest in the market now, around the AI adoption. 48 markets, 47 markets, 48,000 people to see how the adoption, how does the population use and adopt AI, not only in businesses, but in a broader perspective. So Sam, maybe I can give the word to you to give a little bit of a high-level overview of what is coming out of the research.
So, is that on? Yep.
Yep.
I'm very happy to be here today and really proud of this research. As Renee mentioned, it's the largest of its kind on people's attitudes and trust toward AI and their adoption. And I just want to call out a few high-level findings on the survey. So at the highest level, what we saw is that AI adoption is actually outpacing literacy, but that's having a direct impact on people's trust of AI because they're using it without fully understanding it. Another thing that was really interesting with the results is that we saw, you mentioned 48,000 people across 47 countries, so very rich data and insights from the survey, and it became very clear that when we look at the demographics in emerging economies versus advanced economies, that there was much more adoption, more trust, more self-reported literacy and education, and also more recognition of the benefits from AI in the emerging economies versus advanced economies. So I think that should be a little bit of a firecracker for the advanced economies to really try and catch up. And I think it's because the emerging economies can recognize immediate benefit and economic growth from AI, and there's a real investment in making sure that people in those countries understand how to use it. I think it's also worth calling out that there were some concerning findings in there that, the majority, in all cases, admitted to some complacency in AI use. So putting either personal or client or company sensitive information on public AI tools is very concerning. A similar percentage of people admitted to using AI outputs without validating the results. And I think they're just a couple of examples that if we don't work on resolving and improving those statistics, the trust is going to continue to decline and therefore the adoption will decline. And so I know we're going to talk about this today. I think it's really important to ensure a strong foundation of trust to ensure successful AI adoption and very quick recognition of the growth and value that can come from AI. And I'm really excited to hear from Julie today about Danone's AI strategy and the great progress that you've made so far.
I'm delighted to be here with you, and indeed we've been using AI in Danone for a while now, but with the Gen AI revolution recently, well, we could do two things, right? Let's wait, or let's dive in. And we decided to dive in, no surprise. So we started first make sure we would empower everyone, and as early as we could, we did granted access to 50,000 employees in Danone. And 1 year from now already, 50,000 Danone employees could access on a daily basis Gen AI. That's cool, right?
Yeah, that's great.
But that's not enough, because that's about upskilling, which is, of course, one of the key pillars of our strategy. This being said, we also took a bit of time to experiment, to learn, and then we've defined the big rocks. Where do we believe AI will be transformative to bring us growth, to make us super competitive and win on the market? And one of these areas, for instance, is science and innovation. For us, with microbiome, it's super key to leverage on AI to get there and to pioneer that. On some other areas, we have defined that AI will be transformative for us in terms of efficiency. So defining those big rocks helped us to define our strategy, and then, since then, we are moving on.
And can you elaborate? We had a pre-discussion on where you are in the journey. Can you elaborate a little bit where you were at this time last year? Because I remember that we had a discussion around use cases. Yes. And where do you feel you are now in the transformation with Danone?
So last year, we had learned for more or less 1 year. We had launched few use cases. We had launched this Data and AI Academy to make sure we could boost the upskilling of our employees. But I would say we were far from being at scale.
Yeah.
What changed over the last year is that we maybe narrowed down the number of key use cases, transformative use cases for us, but those ones we decided to really fewer for better, to accelerate so that we can scale for impact.
Yeah, great. Now, and what we see in the trust research is the adoption. Adoption is really, I think, our biggest barrier to transform with AI. It's actually interesting to hear in the research. Do we have somebody from China here? No, nobody from China. It's interesting to see that the adoption of AI in China, 99% of the people trust the government for the adoption of AI. So there's a huge trust in China and an acceleration to use AI. In France, sorry to say that, in France we are one of the lowest. Not specifically France, I'm Dutch, in the Netherlands we are also quite low. We are in the European culture very critical, risk averse, so that's why the training and adoption, the initiative you take in Danone, you really have to take different approaches in different cultures, different countries, also from a trust perspective. So I really recommend you to read a deep research. We have really deep country analysis, how students are using it, how companies are using it, and what's the impact on organizations. Maybe Sam, to summarize, what are the 3-4 recommendations, what we see coming out of the research?
Yeah, I think to really establish this foundation of trust, KPMG have been pretty provocative, I think, in coming out with our Trusted AI framework about 2 years ago. And it's a really comprehensive framework that addresses very complex and dynamic risks that are in the AI world, much more sort of complex and dynamic than with legacy technology. Legacy technology, we were worried about privacy, data integrity, cybersecurity, and of course they remain today. But with AI, there are so many more complex risks around explainability of the models, reliability of the models or the agents, the sustainability impact, what is the energy cost of the AI systems, fairness, are the models free from bias? There's so many considerations there. So in our framework, we address those. We recommend a number of key things to be in place. First, to have a very robust AI governance model with accountability and oversight for the AI environment. The second is to have responsible use policies and controls in place. The third is to have an AI inventory, so you have full transparency of all of the AI systems that you have in your ecosystem, which allows much more traceability of what you're working with. And then the concept of system cards or model cards that share sort of a description of what the AI system is, how it interacts with the rest of your ecosystem, as well as almost a scoring of the control environment. And I was thinking with system cards with Danone, I hear there's something in France called a Nutri-Score.
There is.
So we could just keep going with the scoring there. But also...
And the A, you need to have an A then.
An A grade,
yeah,
A grade, only A grade. But also using technology to automate the testing and the monitoring of the control environments. And then the final piece is really making sure that there's strong literacy and upskilling, not only in how to use the AI for effective and optimized outputs, but also making sure that you are training people to understand ethics and responsibility and how they have to interact with the AI in an ethical and responsible way. And we feel like that is a very holistic approach that really allows systemic control, but also changing the culture of how people interact. And I did have a discussion with you a week or so ago, and I'm very, very happy to see that Danone is very, very advanced, in fact, in their environment of trust and their considerations of trust. And all of the items that I just mentioned, you either have in place or are well on your way. So I just wanted to congratulate you on that, because it is not something that we are seeing in every organisation. So well done.
Thank you. I'm very proud.
Julie, can you elaborate a little bit on this framework and how that comes to life in Danone? What do you see as the important aspects to get right?
Of course. I think one of the key milestones we took to start with was to establish governance, so that we could think from a cross-functional point of view, from a zone point of view, to have every function, every zone represented in this governance, together with IT and data, of course, having one leader at global level, who's our chief data officer, leading AI at company level, and meeting on a monthly basis to define this strategy and direction. Also, making sure we would start from the beginning, and we discussed a lot trust. When I mentioned before that we decided to empower 50,000 employees from D1 on AI tools, it was also meant to reassure our employees. We want to upskill them, we want to help them entering into AI revolution, to empower them. But we don't want them either to use any tool. We want them to use the tool that we have proved for them in terms of ethics, compliance. So we did establish one policy, an AI Danone policy, which is of course compliant with the EU AI Act. We set up some trainings also on compliance to make sure, and that's e-learning, so it's available to all, and as of, well, I shouldn't say, but as of next year, it's going to be mandatory for all. And of course, there is also ways for any use case. First, we do have an inventory of all use cases we do, but they can also self-assess themselves in terms of risk, compliance, and readiness.
Super. No, really excellent, excellent. And all the elements of the framework are covered, eh? Yeah.
Told you.
Maybe, Julie, you shared me one stat in your finance function, the adoption. We talked about the adoption, but can you tell us a little bit about the adoption rate in finance? Because it's really impressive.
Thank you, because that's the one area what makes me most proud. Currently in finance, 95% of finance employees are equipped with AI and are using it on a weekly basis.
So you hear that? Equipped and using it. The challenge we have, and probably also in your organization a little bit, the challenge we have in KPMG is we give everybody the right tools, but the adoption again. How do you work side by side? And Per, you were also talking here about the transformation. Work side by side, for me it means something different than from a tax expert for the different professions. You need to build it into your own workflow. Shall we move to agentic? And really pleased that Per is here with us today. Per, I think a global leadership, thought leadership piece will come out to explain in a simple way around agentic AI. We launched the TACO framework. We are in Europe, so TACO doesn't have other meanings as well. TACO means taskers, automators, coordinators and orchestrators. That's our framing of agentic, and to be very pure, the real agentic AI is more the orchestrators, but around these four, let's say, maturities of more complex agentic AI, there is different controls in place. Can you tell a little bit of how do we, because we now have been asked also by clients, we work with clients to implement example of ServiceNow in global business services, where we built the trusted ecosystem and the trusted stamp, what you talked about. Can you tell a little bit what we are doing there and how we are working with clients?
Yeah, let me talk about the agentic AI risks first. I think you're right, especially as they increase in sophistication and become the orchestrators and they start interacting with each other. As with that sophistication comes more sophisticated risk exposure. And so we think the best approach, of course, is to make sure that the agents are trusted by design. And there are some design principles that we at KPMG, as we are building our own agents, but also what we're recommending for clients, is to make sure that you set boundaries or constraints with what tasks and activities the agents are allowed to perform. That they are built with unique identifiers so that you can constantly log and track what they're doing and therefore have full traceability of the actions. I think it's important to make sure that they're built with transparency for the humans interacting so that they're always aware of when they are interacting with an agent and they have the option to opt out of interacting if they don't want to. Another thing is also to have a fail-safe switch so that if ever they are entering territory that feels a little too powerful or they're accessing things that they shouldn't, that the humans can switch off the agent as necessary. And then talking about humans, of course, the ultimate control remains having a human in or on the loop. And when I talk about on the loop, it's really when the agents start interacting with each other that there is a human over the top, sort of overseeing how they're interacting with each other and sort of validating that is okay and that the outputs are accurate. So I feel if those design principles are embedded before they are deployed, I think that we're going to be in a good stead to recognize the value from agentic AI. You also mentioned ServiceNow. So about a month ago at the Knowledge Conference in Las Vegas, ServiceNow launched their AI control tower. And KPMG co-developed that with ServiceNow, and it's just a fantastic way to automate and integrate all of the things that I was just talking about before that you would expect to have in your AI governance model, the inventory, so that it's all integrated. There's a workflow, and so we're really, really proud of that because I think it just shows that we're working with our alliance partners to tackle this problem that hasn't been solved yet.
Yeah. And how should organizations like Danone, and I will ask you after that, but how should organizations start their agentic AI journey?
Well, I hope in advance of the agentic AI journey that they've established their AI governance model and that has very broad representation from the business leadership, the risk leadership, legal, technology, procurement, all of the different business groups and back office functions need to be involved because it really touches all parts of the enterprise. And so with that established, I think making, just the agentic design principles that I mentioned should be built into the SDLC and they should really go through the same review cycle that any other AI does. It just needs to be more rapid, and I think it needs to be more automated. We can't do sort of point-in-time testing with agents. It needs to be continuous and real-time monitoring of the agents once they're in place. But I really think if there's a well-established governance model and control environment and responsible use policies in place, it's a very good place to start.
Yeah, super. Can you share a little bit, also if you don't want to share, but can you share a little bit where you are on the agentic side? Are you starting? Are you testing? Where are you?
That's a good one. First, I believe the agentic framework is fantastic because the level of automation that we can reach through that is really pushing frontiers, pushing borders. And we mentioned a lot the trust, which is obviously key for us to be able to use this framework. What is also key to me in finance is ROI. So yes, we entered the agentic revolution, and we decided to have a policy which is also fewer and better. So we spend a little bit of time to explore which use case would really make sense for us, which kind of automation would be the best one for those use cases, and some we decided to go for it, but not with agentic framework. And the one we selected are the one we want to scale.
Yeah.
So yes, we started, and we are super happy with the results we have. We have one agent we recently built on the accounting field within our shared services, and I must say I'm coming with a transformation background, and I'm also used to slow or medium speed transformation. To set up an agentic, the speed of it is quite amazing. So we are already starting to scale, and that's giving results, but we decided really to go for fewer, better, also to help us enforce the compliance, make sure we would monitor every use case and be in control. Yeah.
Great. Fewer, better, bigger impact.
Bolder.
Bolder. I see we are out of time for the presentation. Any final words, something I forgot, something you want to share with the audience?
I think the trust, and this conversation has been a lot about trust, is really key. Yeah. Because we do want to engage employees, we do want to empower humans through AI, but without the trust from our top, from our people, from the system, from the data, and again, I'm from finance, so accuracy matters. Yeah. This trust is essential. So getting this framework done so that we can confidently move on in the AI revolution, that's what it takes.
Super. Tone at the top, drive it from leadership. Sam, and the final word?
I'd close again, like yesterday.
You do.
So at KPMG, we really like to say, ask the question, do you think you can be bold, fast, and responsible with AI? And hearing all of the opportunities that you've already recognised at Danone and what is to come in innovation, in efficiency, in different forms of ROI, I think you absolutely can achieve all of that if it is built on a foundation of trust.
Super. Thank you, Julie. Thank you, Sam. Really excellent. We have a few minutes for a few questions to Sam and Julie, not to me, but any questions? Yeah.
Yes. Hi, I'm Joanna. I wanted to know what are the criteria that makes you say or that make you think that a use case have a sense. So that's the question.
So there is many criteria, and I would say it depends on the domain you're studying. In our AI strategy, some domains are really to boost growth. Some others are here to boost efficiency. In finance, no surprise, it's mainly about efficiency. So some of the criteria would be the time spent, of course, though sometimes difficult to measure, so not an easy one. But time spent is essential. P&L impact in the end. Do you have a P&L impact because you have fewer claims, less time spent on it? It does improve your payment delay. So it's about finding, and I don't have a magic answer, unfortunately, but it's about finding the one KPI that will help you measure. And as long as you have a measure, then you can compare to it. I think what's been key beyond the criteria is learning to fail. Dropping in time a use case so that you would select the one that you're going to scale.
Can I add on to that? I'm just referring to Per's presentation just before. I think it's important to make sure that there is some governance and organisation over decisioning which use cases will be implemented, because I think every part of the business has a lot of ideas of how they could use AI, but it needs to be a prioritised and coordinated approach across the enterprise to make sure that you are investing in the areas that are going to drive the greatest impact for that enterprise. So I think just making sure there's like an enterprise strategy to drive that.
Super. The last question. Anybody? Again, thank you very much, Julie, Sam.
Thanks, Renee.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.